Hey, what's up everybody? It's Christian here with Reaper Disc, and today I want to take a look at the Millennium Disc Draco. Now, the Draco is a 9-speed overstable fairway driver coming in at 9304 for the flight numbers. Designed to be pretty well like just a perfectly seasoned Firebird, the Draco comes in with a good flat top, slightly beefier rim feel to give a very comfortable feel in the hand and give you a nice clean release. This is going to fill that spot in the bag where you're needing a good, just kind of faster fairway driver that's good, overstable, and a wind fighter, kind of where you're going to see Firebirds and Felons and things of that nature fall into most other people's bags. The big difference with the Draco is it's a little more user-friendly than the traditional overstable 9-speeds, and we'll get into that in just a second. I personally bagged the Draco, and I have for a while, actually pretty well this entire season, and I've relied on it pretty heavily, especially once I get in the woods, and I still need the overstability and torque resistance to be able to lean on it on a forehand, but being able to have the touch to carve up some of those tighter wooded gaps that I see here in Southern Ohio. Now, let's get into how it flies. On a Hyzer, the Draco pretty well doesn't move from the Hyzer angle that I put it on. Now, a couple things to bear in mind. This isn't a full power shot. This is just a controlled Hyzer. So I'm not really trying to get any big flip out of this thing or overpower the disc. I'm just mainly focused on how it behaves when put on just a stock Hyzer release. And that is it doesn't want to waver from the initial angle whatsoever. It didn't want to move more into Hyzer angle, and it didn't want to fight out of it any at all. It just held the exact same angle all the way up and then all the way back to the ground. Like I said, I'm not going for power or for distance, but it is worth noting that this disc likes to push forward as it fades, and even on a, relatively lower powered shot, this thing is still getting around 290 feet of distance. In other more optimal conditions, this thing can actually reach out a good bit past that. However, like I said, I wasn't necessarily aiming just for, distance with this shot. Now, when thrown flat, I did slide a little bit on the release here and put it a little nose up. So that is one thing to keep considered when watching this. However, it didn't really affect the overall outcome of the flight too bad at all. Like I said, having bagged this disc for, or a disc like it, for over a year now, when released flat, this is how it's going to fly. It had a really just dead straight flight for pretty well most of the flight. Getting about 325 feet of total distance, 300 of it was dead straight before it even thought about fading. It didn't really want to get into any turnover angle, and it didn't want to start fading prematurely. It just had a really nice laser straight flight until it started slowing down a little bit, and then a fairly moderate fade started to kick in. Again, pushing forward while it faded, it still got that extra 20 to 30 feet out of it at the very end after the stability started kicking in. This is really good whenever you need to trust to hit a dead straight line with some power and know that it's not going to turn over, but you're not going to start fading too prematurely. Probably really good for those, tight wooded hallways where you need to fade just a little bit at the very end, but you can't play with something that might turn over a little too much. This disc would fit that spot perfectly. Now, when released on an Anhyzer, it actually held the Anhyzer all the way up the flight and past the peak, and then about halfway back down to the ground was still holding the Anhyzer angle. About halfway back down, it did start to flatten back out, and then eventually kind of stalled and flexed back into that stalling fade that just kind of falls back to the left. This isn't going to be a disc that's going to be able to hold an Anhyzer angle for the entire flight unless you really beat one up, and because of that, you're not just going to get huge panning turnovers. However, if you need to get up and around something, but trust that it's not going to continue panning from left to right, or even fade back and start flexing back to the left after you get around whatever obstacle you're trying to, this disc would work pretty well for that. Now on a full power shot, this is where you can start seeing how this more resembles a seasoned Firebird than a traditional Firebird. The Draco on full power, and this is actually a pretty nifty camera angle, being able to see it from the top and actually see that lateral movement. This thing, I started it on some pretty decent Hyzer, and it did flip all the way up to flat, even drifting a little bit from left to right, but mainly just going laser straight before finishing very, very mildly. Nearly just a straight finish with just a hint of fade. This thing just absolutely cooked down the fairway. Being as it's a nice flat top disc, it will cut through the air really, really quickly, and, designed to fly the way it is, this thing feels the way I always wanted my seasoned Firebirds to feel, and I get that out of the box with the Draco. It is an awesome overstable disc that flies like a seasoned overstable disc that you've been trying to work in for years and years, except you don't have to worry about beating up that other disc too much or losing it in the process or, anything like that. You can pick out a brand new Draco and it's going to fly like that nice seasoned overstable disc that you want so badly. If that's what you're after, definitely pick up a Draco because it's going to fit the bill perfectly. I personally lean on the Draco, again, whenever I need a little more touch and angle control than what my Firebirds will typically be able to give me. If I need to tone down on it a little bit and not throw it with full power, but still be able to control those angles and maybe even some slight turnovers or things like that, I'm leaning on the Draco and I'm leaning on it pretty hard. This is one of my favorite discs to pull out of the bag in the woods, whether forehand or backhand, it doesn't matter. In the helioplastic like this one is, it's very, very grippy. This specific run is actually fairly soft and offers me a good grip no matter what time of the year, and it's honestly one of my favorite discs in the bag. It's ultra reliable, even though it isn't crazy overstable, you can still lean on it to fight out of pretty well any Anhyzer that you put it on, and to fight up to even some pretty significant amounts of wind. It's pretty torque resistant, very reliable, and consistent time and time again. I would suggest this disc for anyone who is looking for that seasoned, overstable fairway driver flight, new out of the box. I would also, recommend this to any players who maybe don't have the arm speed to be able to get a good flight out of, say, a Firebird or a Felon or something like that. And, they still want that flight, but they can't get it out of that disc. I would suggest the Draco to that player as well. If you want to get a Draco for yourself or shop around for any other disc you might be interested in, click the link in this video to head over to reaperdisc.com to shop to your little heart's content. They also have a huge selection of some awesome apparel, like this shirt right here, that you can pick up and sport it out on the course, and I guarantee you're going to be looking the best out there. Follow us on social media at ReaperDisc. That way you're kept up to date with all of our, product restocks and new inventory, exclusive drops, things like that. And if you want to see more content like this, hit the subscribe button, and to make sure that you're the first one to know, go ahead and ring that notification bell. It doesn't cost you anything, and you're kept in the loop every time we decide to post something. Again, I'm Christian with Reaper Discs, and I'll see you guys in the next video.